overpower this tendency to degeneration. And of course, you can make things go uphill. You can make water run uphill with a pump, engineer energy. You can have the acorn that grows up to the oak tree. Of course, it eventually dies and deteriorates, but it is bathed in the energy of the sun, and you can see that overpowering the tendency to degeneration. And so the idea is that as long as you have energy, then you just forget the law. Actually, there's some that think that and have taught that. It's nonsense. John Ross of Harvard, in Chemical Engineering News, addressed that point directly when he says, ordinarily, the second law is stated for isolated systems. That's the way it's defined. That's the way you have to make the equations balance. You have to deal with it in terms of the closed system. Something else is going to mess up the equation. But the second law applies equally well to open systems. I mean, the fact you've got the sun shining on you doesn't mean you're not going to get old and deteriorate, does it? Or is that we know that's not the case with buildings. Arnold Sommerfeld, who wrote the book Thermodynamics and Statistical Mechanics, says the quantity of entropy generated locally cannot be negative, irrespective of whether the system is isolated or not. Entropy, the measure of disorder, has to be positive. Disorder increases. Again, that backwards approach. George Gaylord Simpson of Harvard makes, I think, a very common sense statement in his introduction to biology when he says, the simple expenditure of energy is not sufficient to develop and maintain order. Now, if you're going to develop and maintain order, make something go uphill, yes, you have to have energy. But that's a necessary requirement, not a sufficient requirement, though. You have to have more than that. He says a bull in a china shop performs work, but he neither creates nor maintains organization. Does that make sense? The work needed is particular work. It must follow specifications. It requires information on how to proceed. And so not only do you need energy in order to overpower this deterioration, you need information. You need particular energy specifying how things proceed. And that's very obvious when you look at the simple cell. That's what we're talking about in terms of origins here. Carl Sagan, certainly not a friend of the creationists, acknowledges that the information content of the simple cell has been estimated at around 10 to the 12th bits. How much is that? Comparable to about 100 million pages